So we just start rolling with this history of the PsyD, where it came about. I actually don't even know this, so I'm really excited to learn about this.
Oh, sure. I'll give a rough history. The fine details, of course, are going to be lacking, but it's enough to give us a general idea of what's happening here. Really, this all comes from clinical psychology, and it starts in, I think, the 40s. I should probably have my facts here before I get you in trouble with lying. It starts in the 40s with this meeting in Colorado, in Boulder. And so this is what you might have heard of, the Boulder model. This is the scientist practitioner model, comes out of Boulder, in that if you're going to be a clinical psychologist, right, you're going to get your PhD, you get training in research and practice. The problem is, what was happening is there was like too much research, not enough practice, and it seemed to maybe get a little too rigid and stuff when you got out into practice. And so they said, well, let's have kind of a flip of this. And this is a conference there in the 70s, I think the 70s, in Vail. So they're in Vail, and this is the Vail model, where it's all about doctoral training to be practitioners who also understand science. So let's put the science into practice. We're going to bridge, right, research to practice. That was the idea. That's like the 30-second overview of, the PhD versus the PsyD. Generally speaking, the consensus is, and of course there's nuance, but the consensus is PhD is for research, PsyD is for practice. That's the gist of it. Now, of course, there are professors who have PsyDs who do research, okay? And in our field, any doctoral level individual who's out in practice, they have a PhD. And so one doesn't exclude the other, but it's more of a focus on training. It doesn't mean that that's all you're good at, of course, and our field gets a little bit weird because all of our practitioners are, in a sense, scientists, right? Any good practitioner should be conducting little mini studies with their clients, right? This is essentially what a functional analysis is. This is why we always take good, solid data on the progress we're making with our clients. But it's a matter of degrees, right, in the difference. They're kind of the goals of what your science is. PhD, the goal of science is control, demonstrations of control. Research and practice is demonstrations of success, right? Control's part of that, but it's not primarily what you're looking for.
That's distilled so nicely. I like that.
Well, I think it's interesting. We're in sort of a unique situation where St. Cloud State, being part of the Minnesota state system, as opposed to the University of Minnesota, we're actually not allowed to offer a PhD. University of Minnesota has the exclusive right to that degree, and so all the Minnesota state universities offer a variety of these other more practice-focused doctoral degrees. And so I feel like all of us, having come out of fairly traditional PhD programs, if we had had that option, we probably would have gone down that road. But not having it, I think, was a blessing in disguise, because we really had to think outside of the box and think about how to make the program distinct in order to warrant that different degree model, and make it really fit that PsyD mold more so than the traditional PhD. So it kind of made us get creative in a way that I don't know if we would have come to otherwise.
Can we dive into what some of those maybe are? Like, what are some of the different distinctions and such?
And I remember, Michelle and I, these were pre-COVID days. We were out at your place, hanging out in the backyard, drinking, putting together these kind of rough ideas of what this looked like. We've been lucky because we've had a distance program, an online program for a master's for many, many years. And so we've been able to, with our partner sites all over the world, primarily in the US and Canada, we work a lot with smaller autism providing clinics. And we kind of see a little bit of the day-to-day operations. And so we get to take a lot of kind of anecdotal data on what are your struggles, what would make your clinic better, what training do you wish you had. And the one thing that kept coming up over and over and over again is business management, right? We're good. Like you sit me down with a kid, sit me down with my client. I can get them to do anything, right? But what I don't know is how to balance the books. I don't know insurance billing. I don't know, this, that, and the other thing. And outside of a few master's program options, there isn't a heavy emphasis on organizational behavior management and things like that. And so for our program, the thing we kind of came to that's going to, we're hoping sets us apart is it is all about running your own clinic. Now, that doesn't always mean owning your own clinic, right? You might be clinic director, but having a better understanding of the operations of a clinic. And then how do you bring research to practice in such a manner that is efficient and effective? Right? It's the case that sometimes we run into clinics who try to run their clinic like it's a Java article, and they'll collect 2 weeks of baseline before they do anything, and they'll run out these maintenance sessions forever just to prove it worked. And it's like, your goal isn't to demonstrate control. Your goal is to help that kid as quickly as you can, as best as you can, and get moving to the next thing. Dollars and cents, when you're trying to do staff training like it's straight out of Jobum, that's expensive, right? They're doing staff training and they've got like 3 people trained up on IOA. Do you need that in the clinic, right? There are cases you might, but for the most part, some of the financial things just weren't working in that sense.
I've also seen the challenge where we learn so much about our ethics and our morals, and I think most people get into this field one way or another because they want to help people, and that doesn't necessarily translate into a successful business model. And if you go to business books, I actually had a colleague in graduate school who did set out postdoc and start her own business, and spent the better part of 2 years trying to teach herself all of these principles. But most of the information out there is about how to make money, how to keep that business solvent, which may or may not jive with our ethics, may or may not match up with what restrictions we have on advertising. And so really having to marry the business aspects of operating a clinic with being a healthcare and human service field, and what our sort of greater ethics are in that respect, and how do you blend the two in a successful way.
Are there any examples that y'all could share that would kind of highlight to people, like some of the things that you might be working on discussing or teaching in that vein?
Well, I think that actually brings up one of the other unique and pretty exciting features of the program, which is we're not claiming to be experts on this. We're all, the research-based PhDs. We're building partnerships with the business school here at St. Cloud State and bringing in people who have experience in business, in nonprofit, in healthcare, and really leaning on them to bring that content. We're not going to try to advertise ourselves as the experts of successful clinical practice. So I think that's why you're getting crickets when you ask us what the content is. I'm as excited to learn it as I hope our future students are.
That's really cool. Yeah. I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, we've been kind of exploring a lot of these elements in the master's program, seeing how they work and things like that. So when we have internship projects with our master's students, at least I know for mine, one of their projects, they have to do an OBM project, and they have to do the dollars and cents. They got to get the return on investment, right? You got to make sure that it actually makes financial sense for the company. We've had some projects that the return on investment was estimated to be between $25,000 and $50,000 a year for a simple intervention. Those are fantastic. We keep those running. I love those too, because then our students have some leverage when they graduate. Pay me more and look what I bring you. But then we'll also have clinics that have really good ideas. We run the project and we do the return on investment, and we find out it's costing them, $5,000 a year or $10,000 a year or whatever. Now, of course, everything we do costs money, right? Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's worth it to invest that extra money to get whatever that product is. Sometimes it's not, right? And that's where, Dr. Traub was talking about, you get this conflict between, I got to keep the lights on, but I also have to be ethical. And there's a way to marry the two. You can walk that line where both work together. And, for what it's worth, I think if you're a behavior analyst and you can run a good clinic, get your money. It should be you, the behavior analyst, and not somebody else who wants to make money off the autism clinic. Why shouldn't we be the ones who are in charge of it? There's nothing wrong with getting paid.
I think I definitely agree with what Dr. Witts is saying about how we go about our internship projects and practicum projects and looking at staff training. I know that's kind of been a theme in the last year and a half since I've been here about how do we get our students equipped to be better supervisors and better leaders, even at the master's level. So when I'm thinking about the PsyD, this is going to provide even more experiences and opportunities for them to do that. Just some examples, some of my students really do focus on efficient and training practices with their staff, their teachers. And oftentimes if that's the route they're taking in their projects, everyone comes back with behavioral skills training. Great strategy, very supported in our literature, but not usually a strategy that many people can adopt, especially if they're the only really BCBA in a district, right? There's not a lot of hands-on support. So I'm really excited about getting students who are kind of, pumped or ready to kind of, how do we be efficient and effective, but also, disseminate our practices in a way that others can consume in clinical practices, either with kids with autism or other populations.
Was there anything that happened in the program, like case examples kind of with students where you started to realize we needed to build this?
Michelle and I and Kim, who's not able to join us today, we've had these conversations for years. We also, I think it's that idea that the distance master's program has let us work with so many clinics that we see it over and over and over again. We also talk to our former students and ask them, what do you need that we couldn't give you? And like I said, the business stuff keeps coming up over and over again. And business also means, staff management and things like that. And we realized, the master's programs as they're set up now, you can only do so much in 2 years, right? And no master's program is to blame here, okay? That's just the nature of it. If we offered everything we wanted to offer, we would have a 70 or 80 credit master's program, right? Ours is bloated enough as it is. And so if you're going to have these elements that everyone says that they need, it either has to already exist in some extra training, which some of the PhD programs out there tap into some of this, right? But there was none that we saw that was exclusive that did those things we wanted to do. And I think that's just the nature of the PhD versus the PsyD. And so that was kind of the Michelle said, we were so lucky we had to do a PsyD. It forced us to start thinking along those lines. And when you think about it, what is our field right now? Are we known for the tremendous, we do great research, but is that what we're known for? No, we're practitioners. We go out and help people. It was a little odd that there was no active PsyD program in ABA while we were starting this.
Can you all talk about the accreditation that you all hold and what that means for your verified course sequences, your ABI, et cetera? Because that's a distinction that I think is known to, I think that distinction is out there, but it's with newer students and the influx of credentials. it's getting lost as to like that as a quality indicator and what it means. So if you can kind of describe any aspect of that, that'd be great.
So the Association for Behavior Analysis International has an accreditation board. And with that accreditation, what they're really looking for is, the rigor of the program. Does it represent the values of ABAI? Now, a lot of these values are going to overlap with the BACB and that credentialing body, but there are some that are distinct. The other thing too is, ABAI is really interested too in the quality of education that the student receives, the student experience. It looks at our faculty being supported through administration. Do you have the right space in your labs to effectively teach and do research and things like that? So it really evaluates the whole program and making sure that it's up to the standards that ABAI puts forth. So that's kind of the basis for the accreditation. Kind of what it is. It's a pretty intense process. It's a fun process. I like it. It's always nerve-wracking when you've got creditors, I don't want to say like snooping around your program, but that's their job. It's really neat because every time we've had an accreditation visit, we come out stronger, right? That's the whole point of it.
Those accreditors are sometimes like your behavioral heroes, yeah, or folks that you know in the field, right?
Yeah, which makes it additionally scary, right? But it's a really fun process. It's an educational process. When you serve as a visitor, you always get to find out what other programs do, and you're like, I'm going to steal that. That's going into my class now, and vice versa. So it's a really cool exchange of ideas on kind of a more intimate, personal level, which is really cool. But that's the accreditation, right? So that's up to the standards of ABAI.
The VCS signals that your coursework and your academic training will be accepted as qualifying to take the certification exam. That you've had the minimum coursework in various disciplines within the field that you can sit for the exam. The accreditation, and we all might have different descriptions of what this is, but the accreditation really says that the program is supported within the larger institution and is a priority for the institution, and that it's scientifically and academically rigorous. I don't know, Odessa, do you have any?
No, I agree with the accreditation. And I think as someone who just came out of grad school recently, it also signals to a student that independent observers came to the site or interviewed the faculty and talked to the students and kind of signed off on it, right? A lot of the questions that the accreditors are asking, most of the questions, in fact, are about students, their experiences, how they like their classes, how you teach the classes. It's all very student driven. So if you see a program that has that ABAI accreditation, right, that stamp of approval, as a student, you should feel good about applying, right? Someone's actually taken the time to kind of say, yep, this is a solid program that really dedicates themselves to the student experience in a variety of ways, right? The rigor, the practical experience, the mentorship, and then the larger institution.
VCS is what are you teaching?
Yeah.
ABAI is, are you able to teach it?
Hey, so this is just one of a series of videos that were sponsored by St. Cloud. Big shout out to them. They help me make more content, but this is just fantastic stuff that the field of behavior analysis really needs. If you want to contact them, you can actually book a Zoom session with the program coordinator. Sounds crazy. Yes, you can talk to them one-on-one. There's also a link to learn more. Meet the team and then learn about that.
So I'm Ben Witts, and I'm a professor at St. Cloud State University. I'm the program coordinator. I oversee the master's programs and the PsyD program, and I teach in the undergraduate programs as well.
Michelle Traub, assistant professor at St. Cloud State in the ABA program. I also teach in the undergrad. I am the verified course sequence coordinator.
I'm Odessa Luna. I am an assistant professor here in the ABA program at St. Cloud State. And this is my second year, or going into my second year here, so the newest faculty member.
the best thing to do is email me. We'll set up a time to chat over Zoom or something like that. I find emails are impersonal, web forms are impersonal. Graduate school is all about you as a person and fit, and you only get that in a conversation.
That's great. I don't know anyone else that offers that. It wasn't offered when I went through my program. So, and I'll see you in the next one. That's your Daily BA.